All right, welcome back to Terminal Garage. So today I'm going to be carrying on with the Subaru Sambar Rescue. As you saw in the last video, we got that starter rebuilt. Didn't know that it needed to be done, but it did, and so we got that done. And unfortunately, still having problems with the carburetor. So I'm going to put that carburetor on pause. I've got a couple feelers out there to try and find maybe another carburetor, but nothing back yet. But today what I want to do is get this box back on. So I've got the box. I've moved it out of the shop outside. And I'm going to drill out a couple of broken studs in there, a couple of broken off bolts. And I also got to take that fuel filler, the fuel level sending unit out, and I've got to weld a new tab on for the neutral, the negative connector. Other than that, this box is ready to go back on, so I think that's what we'll do. Let's just get into putting that box on. This is the bolt that I broke off. It's an 8 by 1.25. And there's a few spots on here I've got to chase the threads, like here, these two here. There is another snapped off one here. I believe that may have been for the, yes, that was for the exhaust. So I got to get that one out, but and chase. So all I'm going to do right now is chase the threads of those that are not broken, and then I'll have to start drilling the other ones out. Okay, so what I've done is taken my center drill in my cordless drill, drilled that out in the center. Yeah, you can see the bolt sort of coming through the nut, which is welded on. So the theory is, it works well, lots of penetrating oil on there. Start to drill, and when it starts getting to be a bit of a thin wall, and that the next drill grabs, it's going to tighten it, because it's spinning clockwise, and drive the threads right through. And it, generally speaking, works like a charm. All right, let's see how this works here. A bit of cutting oil. We'll put the first drill through. All right, that's just about through that bolt. I'll go a little bit bigger here, see if she bites and pushes through. All right, another drill size bigger. There we go. So you guys can see that. Got it pretty centered. So now all I'll do is I'll take a tap, drive a tap through there, and use a little bit more. There you go. Success. Okay, we'll just grab a tap. Oh yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, that's great. So that's one down, two to go. The key to success really with this is getting it centered. Getting your drill centered in the bolt. This one was off a little bit. You know, you're gonna start wiping out threads. This was the last one, it came out pretty good, but here's a little bit of thread that came out. Just get your drill right down the middle. Now this works on a scenario where you have the bolt going in a through hole. If you're drilling out like a stud or something that's going into a blind hole, so this is a normal twist drill. What you want to use is a left hand. So you actually turn the drill counterclockwise so that when that drill bit bites, it actually will grab and thread the stud out of the hole. So, you know, it might be a little harder to find, but if you can get a hold of a left-hand drill for drilling out studs or broken off bolts out of a blind hole, that's what you need. That's the most success I've had, is doing it that way. All right, let's carry on. All right, so with those holes all cleaned up, I'm gonna pressure wash the bottom of this before I put the box back on because it's pretty dirty. So the last thing I got to do on this before I put the box on is the little spade connector came off right here. And it is completely rotted and stuck inside. So I'm going to cut this off I'm gonna make up a new little spade connector and weld it onto here. I'll remove this, clean off all the gas and everything on it so hopefully it doesn't spark up. Well, it won't be near the tank. I'll do it away from the tank. But yeah, I gotta replace this, then I can hook these wires up and then I can put the box of the truck on. So all I did was take a little shim that I had, some shim material. So now what I'll do is I'll basically weld that onto there, just look almost like a little spot weld, and a new spade connector, and that'll fix it. So the next thing I'll do, actually I gotta move this vehicle out of the way so I can get my welder out. Take the nuts off, obviously, clean it all up to make sure there's no gas, at least as little gas as possible on there. Take it outside and spot weld that on. All right, so I got the battery disconnected, the bolts off, and now this should just pull out like that. I'll put a rag over top of the hole to kind of keep the fumes down, and I'll clean this up and put her together. All right, so I got a new tab welded on. It ain't pretty, but it'll definitely work. And then I gave it a bit of a wire wheel and painted it. But I'm just putting a meter on here, and I'm getting some erroneous readings on my voltmeter, my ohms meter. So I may have to open this up and look at the contacts on the inside. So I'm gonna just try this one more time and see what kind of readings I'm getting. Yeah, definitely this is not working. So if you look right there, there's a little bent over tab right by my thumb. And let's see, there is also, I think, another one on this side. Basically just a bunch of little metal tabs. There's another one right there. You just got to carefully bend those so that this little cover will come off, and then you can get to what's inside here, which is the important part. Okay, so if you look inside, once you get the little metal cover off, you'll see a little plastic piece with a whole bunch of wire wrapped around it. And when the float goes up and down, this little thing basically makes contact with various parts of it. So I'm going to take a close look at this and see if I can see what's going on. It doesn't look corroded. Okay, so what I've done is taken a little bit of 600 really fine wet and dry paper and just gone over this edge with the wires and just check the tension on this and everything. And so now I'm going to hook my meter up and see if it works. All right, so I've got my meter hooked up so you can see. This would be the tank all the way full. And as it goes down, you can watch the numbers are basically climbing nice and even, more or less. So it's working. So I'll put this back together and install it back into the tank. All right, so there you go. It's all installed, new spade connector on there. That is the fuel tank fixed. I think I've got one hose to hook up under there, and this is ready to go back together. I can put the box back on the truck. All right, I turned the key on, and looky there, fuel gauge is working. My son just came home, and we're going to drop the box on. Okay, the box is just sitting there, but that's great. That's a huge step. So the next thing I'll do is hook up install all the bolts and start doing all my wires, lights, just get everything all put in place, and just got to get that darn carburetor figured out, and this thing would be ready to go. Oh, also, I did pick up another muffler. This muffler is way better than the one that I had. It was completely rotted out. So I picked this up for 50 bucks. The heat shield is a little rough, but anyway, I probably could have put that on before, but oh well, it's got to connect to the box as well. So we're ready to put this thing, put it back together. So I've got all the bed bolts on except for the little ones here. If you can remember, when I took these off, some of them were stripped and I welded nuts on. So they're a very low profile bolts, so I'll probably just go find some normal bolts and machine the head down so that they're low profile like that. And then the next thing I'm doing right now is putting the exhaust on, and the exhaust is definitely a puzzle that has to go in the right order. First I put this on, then I realized, I gotta get this heat shield on first. So I put the heat shield on. Now I can't get this in. So you have to lay the heat shield onto the exhaust, slide it into place, and then you can bolt the heat shield and the exhaust on, and then get all these various heat shields on, which are like a giant puzzle, but yeah, they can go together. They will fit. It's just getting it in the right order. All right, I got the exhaust bolted in minus all the heat shields, and I got the tail lights in, and the park lights are on, and obviously the signal lights work, so that's good. I just have to check the brake lights, but yeah, so far so good. Everything electrically is working, and everything's bolting up nice. One thing I'd long forgotten about was this list I had. Remove fuel tank, remove carb, unlock rear wheel, pull engine and transmission. That's all done, except I never did remove the tank. I didn't need to. But it's just so old, the tape is, oh man, it's dried up and hardened on here. Yeah, that's kind of funny. We got a lot done so far. It's been a long go, but we're close to the finish line. Just got to figure what I'm going to do with that carburetor. I've got the four-wheel drive module hooked up with the vacuum lines. The carburetor, obviously I'm still waiting for that, trying to find something, but so I've got a couple vacuum lines hooked up, but not all of it. The air cleaner's hooked up. I've got the hoses for the hot air coming in off the exhaust pipe onto there. I've got the trunk lid, if you will, the hood on. So the lights are all hooked up. Now, one thing I found is the brake lights don't work. And I found what the problem is. Down here, the switch, when you push this, there's a plunger on the backside. The plunger is stuck in. So when you push the brake pedal, the plunger should spring out and make the switch. I have a spare one. I'm going to pop this one out, but if I can't fix it, I do actually have an extra one that I kept from another vehicle a few years ago. Okay, so I took my spare switch, which the plunger sticks out. If you look back there, when I push it in and out, you can see the lights reflecting in my toolbox. So yeah, this definitely is the reason. But I'm gonna see if I can fix the old one. So I pulled this apart. A couple little tabs you can just pull off with a screwdriver, and then this just pops out. And the way this works is actually very simple. There is a plunger. See if you can see this. These are the contacts here. This little switch opens and closes. See if you can get that here. Those are the contacts that open and close. So this little plunger, when the brake is pushing on the plunger, holds that open. And as soon as you press the brake pedal away and the plunger goes out, that closes and makes the switch. That's all it is. It's really simple. Now, I would think there'd be some kind of a spring in here. It's pretty rusty, but doesn't seem to be any spring that would keep that plunger out. There should be a spring in here, but there wasn't one. So with that said, I don't think this thing's going to be of any use. I don't think I can fix this. So I am just going to bite the bullet and chuck it and use my spare. Thank goodness I've got one. With the brake lights working, the next thing I wanted to tackle was the stereo. It was not working, so I thought maybe it was a fuse in the main fuse panel there, but I did a voltage check on here with my meter and I was getting 12 volts at the harness, so that meant there was something wrong with the stereo, and all it was for whatever reason that 10 amp fuse was popped. So I put a new fuse in it. Now the stereo works perfect. So then the last thing I need to do in here is this fan switch. The fan only works on 3. It doesn't work on 2 or 1. Obviously 0 works. And so I'll show you what I'm going to do to get that fixed. So looking inside under where the radio goes here, you can see this here is the switch. So under this cover right here is some contacts. Now, to get this cluster out here, I think you have to undo screws from the inside because it doesn't come out this way. You got to push it. It's got to go in. So I'm going to get underneath there and see if I can either A, pull this whole assembly out, or B, just try to get that switch cover opened up and get at the contacts. So to get this out, normally it would go up here. I've slipped it down. There's 3 screws holding it in. There you can see there's a screw hole here and here. There you got to reach around in behind, and then there's see if I can get my finger on it right there is a screw hole that you get in from underneath. So once you get the radio out, you go up through a little ratcheting tool and you can get that last screw. So this is held in with 3 screws. But now with this out, hopefully I can get at the heater switch. Oh, one thing I did find that was quite interesting. Some Red Man chewing tobacco from 2005. I'm not a chewing tobacco guy, but I don't know if I've ever seen a pouch of chewing tobacco like that. They usually come in cans. So anyway, that was interesting. So I managed to get this whole thing out. It was not easy because the cables that are connected, there's little circlips that you slide the cable in to your little control, slide the cable into the back of this, and then a circlip pops in. If you have to do this, you'll see how it works. It is a pain, but this is held in, like I say, with 3 screws, 1, 2, and the third one up here. And the interesting thing is I probably didn't have to pull this out. Now that I have it out, I see that the cover that I was trying to get off with the contacts for the fan is held on with 1 screw. So we'll just one hand here, try to pop this screw out. So I think you would be able to get this from inside with it in place, but with that, okay. Oh yeah, there we go. So there are the contacts that actually don't look bad. There's a little bit of green in there, but this is the issue that I'm having is these things. So what I'm gonna do is clean all the grease up, sand those things with some 600 grit just to get them nice and clean again. Same with this, and then I'll put some new dielectric grease on there, put it all back together and see if that fan works. So there, the contacts are nice and cleaned up. So I've got some dielectric grease here. I'll put a little bit of grease on this and put it back together. I will be able to just plug it in real quick and see if that solved it. And if that wasn't it, then it can only be one other thing. All right, so that did not solve it. The switch does work. I've checked it with a meter. So what it very likely is, this is a spare heater box assembly. And right here is the fuse assembly for the fan for the 3 speeds. So there's 2 screws that hold that on. I don't know if I can get that out with the dashboard in. That is going to be very difficult, but I'll see if I can. Yeah, I can't get to that. I'm gonna have to pull the dash back to do it, which is really not a big deal. There's 4 bolts to hold the assembly, the steering column. You pull those 4 bolts, lay the steering wheel down, and then there's, I think, 5, 6 bolts that hold the dash that you can undo and just slide the dash back enough that hopefully I can get in through the top. Okay, so I think that's pretty much going to do it for this video. I wanted to get this one out to you because to get that dashboard out, it's actually going to be quite a bit of work, and I'll do that in another video, maybe in a bit of detail for you guys. But for here, I got, actually for the carburetor, I have put an inquiry into a parts supplier in Japan to see if I can get that needle and seat assembly for the carburetor. My supplier in California says it's no longer available. He's trying to locate a supplier, so fingers crossed. It doesn't sound very promising, but I'm hoping that is the problem and I can find a set to put in and try. If I do get it, I'll be popping that carburetor out and replacing that, and fingers crossed it works. But yeah, that's going to basically do it for today. Hope you're enjoying the progress on this little Sambar Rescue. We're getting close, definitely, to get this thing back on the road. Yeah, so thoughts and comments down below. Think about subscribing. Hey, I'm approaching that 1,000 subscriber mark. That's pretty special, really. I never thought in a million years I'd get up to nearly 1,000 subscribers. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching and have yourself a great day.